geeks, weebs, nerds, and other unfortunates have been fervently waiting for has finally arrived. It's time for TMI, Confessionals of the Nerd Kind. And now, your hosts, Jeff Nerfherder Chandler, Jim Kaiju Baker, and Christina Yojimbo Henry. You can continue. And now, let's get on with the show. Here is TMI.
Yeah, got it. All right. It is Father's Day, although by the time you listen to this, it'll be 3 days later, but happy belated Father's Day.
Christina's not with us because
and Christina is not with us. She's out having fun.
But hey, this is, what we love to do. So that's what fathers should be doing on Father's Day. Stuff they like, right?
Half my family's still sleeping. They don't even know I'm doing this right now.
They don't even know it's Father's Day.
That's true. There's a good chance that they're not going to remember. The lot of being a dad. When did we stop getting ties, Jim? Do you get anything?
I actually like to get socks. Like the goofier, the better. I'm into the printed and licensed socks. Anybody out there likes my opinion so much they want to get me a gift?
Wow,
get me some socks.
Screw Patreon. Let's get some socks going for Jim here. Do you own Bigfoot socks?
I do. As a matter of fact, they're not only Bigfoot socks, they're Christmas Bigfoot socks.
Oh, you think Bigfoot celebrates Christmas?
I think he celebrates Life Day. He's taking a page from Chewbacca's book. Yeah.
I would think he probably leans into the pagan, but yeah, sure. Listen, I'm sure he puts a star on top of the pine tree out there. And
the socks themselves, they're not that imaginative. It's only Bigfoot given his famous sideways glance, or her famous sideways glance, I should say.
Yes, thank you for being all inclusive there.
in front of a Christmas tree. So that's basically what the sock is. But I'll take it.
Fair enough.
Yeah.
I wear corporate branded socks all day. So my fun sock days, I think, are long.
Oh, the brown? You got the brown on your feet?
Yes. You can't wear shorts otherwise.
I see. Yeah, you can't have black socks with the brown shorts. That's not going to do it.
I don't know. All the kids are wearing black socks now.
They should be playing golf with the 80-year-olds out there with their sneakers and black socks.
Yeah, I mean, when we grew up, right, that's an old man thing. No, these kids are wearing black socks, man. The white socks are out. Whatever. These damn kids. So I was going to pepper this entire episode with dad jokes, but it sounded like a lot of work.
Oh, you can't do that when Christina's not here because we need the audible eye rolls to these jokes.
But here's the thing. I know at some point she'll be listening. She'll be out jogging. She's going to listen to this and I'm going to drop some doozies and she's just going to shake her head as she's running down the side of the...
Make it an endurance test to see if she can press stop on her own podcast.
I know somewhere out there she is shaking her head in disapproval. So that's enough for me, really.
So we're animated again this week.
We are very animated.
Those that listened last week will know that we covered the fabulous Across the Spider-Verse, along with the equally fabulous Belle. And we are sticking in that realm this week, but we're going all Disney. We're all in on Disney.
Interesting. I wonder if that's going to be a good thing.
Well, Pixar, Elemental,
my dear Watson.
It is a bit controversial. There is mixed reviews, should I say kindly, out there for this movie. So we'll see. We'll put the definitive stamp on this.
Yes, because what we say goes.
Yes.
Screw the real critics.
And then along with Element, this was actually a pick from Christina herself, but she unfortunately is not.
Yeah, now she's not even here to defend it.
Zootopia. Well, does it need defending? We'll get into it in the second half.
We'll get into it because I think at the end of last week's episode, I kind of dismissed this movie. Yeah.
And Jeff is paying at the concession stand this week.
I am paying at the concession stand. So line up, kids.
All right. So do we have news?
Yeah, we have huge news, and unfortunately, it's not my news to tell, so we can't talk about it. It's Christina's news to tell. Well, what I did want to say is if you follow Christina on Instagram, which is author Christina Henry, all one word, or if you follow us, TMI_podcast 2018, the news has been dropped. But if you want a from the horse's mouth, so to speak, you're going to have to wait until next week.
What else do we have? What else is going on?
We kind of missed this, but last week, June 12th or 10th, I think it was, 30th anniversary of Jurassic Park.
Any given day is an anniversary of something, right?
I know, but boy, so it took 30 million years and plus 30 for these pesky dinosaurs to find a way. But I remember it like it was yesterday, seeing this in the theater.
Yeah,
and we've never covered the original Jurassic Park, which would be and should be a $5.
Yeah, it will someday. It will be a $5.
Completely changed the landscape of movies.
It did, and it changed the landscape of how I perceived movies and what they could do. And this is not an overstatement by any means. I was in disbelief in the theater. I could not believe what I was seeing.
Yeah, no, I think we're all there. Like you were literally transported, and it's a 90-minute movie. You're in, you're out, and you are entertained there is not an ounce of fat in that movie.
No, I can't even tell you how many times I saw it theatrically while it was still out. I went back several times.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
I dragged Skylar and their friends. Was it the 20th anniversary? They was re-released back at theaters in 3D. And we went to the IMAX and we saw it in 3D. And some of that, obviously it was never meant to be 3D. It wasn't shot in 3D, but that was kind of the shtick a couple years ago.
Yes, to retrofit something.
Yes.
This has at least one scene that could translate well to 3D. Let's do it.
Right. Yeah, right. That's all it takes. One shocking scene. Are you aware of this Netflix show, Arnold Schwarzenegger, Fubar?
Yes, I've been watching it. As a matter of fact,
you have been watching it.
Yeah,
I could not get past episode 1.
Really?
No, it's just something. I got to go back and just kind of rewatch it fresh. But it's just been renewed for season 2 already.
Wow. Because it is a nostalgia blast, you get the lovable old Arnold of old.
It's like they're shoehorning in the little catchphrases, and it just something was.
Well, that's what they always did.
I get it, but maybe in the 90s I was a little more.
If I was watching this show and he did not say something like "I'll be back," I think I would feel shortchanged.
Yeah.
It's your typical Arnold vehicle. He's like a secret agent who his family doesn't even know that he's a secret agent. He's retired.
Why didn't they just call this True Lies 2? Was he ex-military?
No, he's just like a James Bond kind of a secret agent kind of guy that goes undercover a lot, and he's retired. The organization pulls him back for one more job. He has to extract another agent. The conceit of this whole show is that agent is his daughter.
Okay.
Which he doesn't know that his daughter was a secret agent. She didn't know about him.
So this literally is True Lies too.
Yeah, but yeah, you could say that. It's a greatest hits kind of a thing for Arnold. Okay. But
all right.
But it's entertaining. It is entertaining.
Well, like I said, it's been renewed for season 2, and maybe I need to give it a rewatch. Sometimes when I sit down at night, and if it doesn't catch me right away, I'm the guy that will when I'm driving, flip the radio channel 1,000 times halfway through a song because I'm just not. And then I do the same thing when I sit down at night to watch TV. I just flip channels, flip. And then I end up watching the same damn thing I watch every night, but maybe I'll go back.
What looks even more entertaining than that is that documentary about him that suddenly dropped on Netflix. Did you see that?
Was actually, I watched it.
Oh, you did? I haven't seen that yet.
Yeah, that's actually very entertaining.
Just anything that he actually narrates, I think, would be entertaining.
Yeah. No, he's it's very interesting. Of course, he knew from day one what he was going to be and what he wanted to be. Maybe I'll have to bring that to the table for the what else did we do? Speaking of greatest hits, it literally goes through like his entire career and hits all the points right from bodybuilding on and
right.
But the reason I wanted to bring up this announcement of season 2 is when Schwarzenegger came out to announce season 2, he also brought up Linda Hamilton, who is now going to be in the final season of Stranger Things.
Really?
Yeah. So they're bringing, they're digging deep on these 80s And we're not getting the show for probably another year, if not more. I haven't even watched the last episode of the first part.
Really?
Yeah, I got halfway through it, and then it just got again. I'm like scatterbrained.
I shouldn't cast any judgment because the same with Andor. I think I'm still 2 episodes from the end of that one.
You should finish that. I need to go back and rewatch that entire first half of the season.
Yeah, I think you need to, though, because these shows take a year to come out again. And then by the time they come out, you've forgotten everything that's happened.
Yeah.
Except for, a few key moments. But who has the time? I've got to have to rewatch the whole series now because the 2 years.
Yeah, this is like a culmination of everything.
Case in point, that show Good Omens that we
season
covered
2.
how many years ago?
I know, yeah.
I have zero memory of what happened at the end of the show.
We liked it, though. I think we enjoyed it. But you're right. Like, I couldn't just go fresh into season 2. I'd be like, wait, who are these guys? What?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, it's amazing. So speaking of which, let's get into some Marvel, because they yet again have started shuffling their schedule around. And I just want to go through this really quick. We've all talked about these different shows that are coming. We are getting Secret Invasion next week.
Yes, I'm very excited for that.
From what I understand, it's only 6 episodes.
Not surprised, as Marvel, as we know, are scaling backwards with this stuff.
But if you're setting up the potential that any one of these superheroes that we have seen in the past may well have been a Skrull, 6 episodes, it's not going to, what kind of an impact is this going to carry over?
Well, think of it this way. Think of the opposite. Back in the day when Netflix was the only one that was broadcasting Marvel TV shows, and we'd get a 13-episode arc of Luke Cage, and it only needed to be 6 episodes. You sit there bored watching half of the season.
The fillers.
Maybe that's their end game here, pardon the pun, but they're cutting the fat. They just want to give you a great show, period.
Well, that just makes me think that the storyline will be completely wrapped up in 6 episodes, and it's not going to...
Marvel, it will carry through to the movie.
I don't know.
Whatever.
So here, let's go through. So
the Marvels, right? Because they established this in the first Captain Marvel, the Skrulls.
Yeah.
So I can only assume that this is going to carry through somehow to the Marvels when this comes out.
You would like to think so, which actually drops in November.
Yeah.
And in between, we're getting season 2 of Loki, which is very interesting. That drops in October. And so apparently we're going ahead with Jonathan Majors, which I'm fine with.
Well, they'd have no choice if they've already filmed season 2 of Loki.
We've seen with that Zack Snyder. You could just cut someone in. You could build them on green screen and just cut someone else in there.
But with Kang, you have that kind of built into the character. So it wouldn't be like a complete about face because there's variants of Kang.
Correct.
So it could be easily explained,
Yeah. So we're going to finish out the year. We get Echo in November, and this is a character that we were introduced to in Hawkeye, and she is tied in greatly with Daredevil in the comics. So we're getting her in November, and then we are getting X-Men 97. It just says fall 2023. And if anybody doesn't know, this is the continuation of the X-Men animated series from the 90s. If you're going to Rhode Island Comic-Con this year, the entire cast will be there. The voice cast. Get yourself a nice big poster. Go get them all autographed.
The original voice cast is coming back for this new one?
Yeah, as far as I understand, yeah. Yeah. I haven't dug too deep into it, but that's my understanding. So that's like the first half of Phase 5. And then coming into 24, we have Ironheart, Agatha.
They're still doing Ironheart? They didn't strike that from their list?
As far as this is the latest update from like 3 days ago. This is what the schedule is.
Okay.
And these are all Disney Plus. These are all Disney Plus shows. Ironheart, Agatha, Spider-Man freshman year, which has to be animated. Marvel Zombies, Daredevil, Born Again, Deadpool 3. Well, Deadpool's a movie that comes out in May of 24 of next year. Captain America, Brave New World, which is interesting because this is the first time that they made a name change. It was New World Order, and now it's Brave New World. That drops in July. Thunderbolts in December, and then Blade in February of 2025. So we have a lot of Marvel stuff coming.
Thunderbolts, I think, should be, maybe I've said this before, that should be all marionettes. That needs to be all marionettes.
And then, so this pushes back all of phase 6, which will be the Fantastic Four, Avengers, Kang Dynasty, and Secret Wars. But I'm thinking to myself, we're going to get 2 more Avengers movies, one in May of 26 and Secret Wars in May of 27. But out of all of these, like, who's left as an Avenger? You got Captain America. Vision's gone. Scarlet Witch is
evil.
Hawkeye?
But is really an Avengers movie just an excuse to have every Marvel character that you know be in the movie and call them Avengers?
But that's what I'm trying to say. Who's going to be left? Loki? You're going to make Loki an Avenger now?
So you're saying who's hanging out at the, you know, if they've even rebuilt it, the upstate New York facility.
Right, because based on all these
you got Ant-Man, right? He's probably the leader of the team by now.
And probably, and Hope. It just, I'm looking at this roster of movies that we got listed. And yes, it sounds like it's Ironheart. Is she going to replace Iron Man? Maybe.
Mm-hmm. Well, you still have Thor and the Hulk.
Yeah, you don't see the Hulk in here at all. You're setting up in the She-Hulk the whole idea that he goes back to.
Well, are they still stuck? Are their hands still tied with that character because, you know, whatever Universal has worked out, they can't do a standalone Hulk movie?
I don't know, but where is he going to show up in any of these other movies? I don't know. Speaking of the Hulk, do you know why the Hulk is so good at gardening?
Why?
Because he has 2 green thumbs. Right. That's all the news I have.
Let's get into Elemental.
Elemental. I mentioned to you before we hit record, I saw this Saturday morning, first showing, and there was a fair amount of people in there. Seemed to be a lot of dads with little kids. And this poor dad behind me who had 2 little girls, one of them couldn't have been more than 3 years old. And she, even before the trailer started, was just a squirming and running up and down and causing a mess. And I overheard him saying, "This is not your first movie, but it may very well be your last." And I'm like, "Oh, you better." But she held it together through the whole movie.
I can't say the same. I can't say the same about my audience.
Oh.
They did not hold it together.
This is what happens when you go to a kid.
Yeah, you gotta, you have to have this in your head, right? That this is not your territory. You know, you are an intruder.
Did you at least bring your son?
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. All right. Yeah. No, I'm a single guy, middle-aged white guy sitting in the middle of the theater. Once again, kid film, wide berth. Nobody sat near me.
But a lot of theaters nowadays, if you know that you're going to have like a raucous group with you, they actually have screenings to take that into account. Some theaters, not all theaters.
Yeah, I think this is why I had a 1040, because that is probably the earliest showing I'm going to get in my theater.
Yeah, so we saw this. We took a trip to Whitehall, Pennsylvania, which is very close to Allentown, where they're shutting all the factories down.
And I immediately went to the song.
Whenever I think of Allentown, I'm like, oh, those poor people. They've shut the factories down.
The factories.
But so we were in Whitehall, Pennsylvania. We saw this at a local AMC. Not the cleanest of theaters, I'll have to say.
Oh, no.
And it was a smallish screen, and it was very dark. It wasn't the Regal experience that I'm used to. Well, comparatively to some of these, it was stadium seating, but it was a smallish theater. And this was opening night of Elemental. And there was a group. It was 2 women and 3 kids that were all probably about 5 or 6. And they were insane throughout this movie. And the parents, I think that they were split between the 2 women, were yelling at them, voice level throughout this movie. There was no attempt to whisper or be quiet.
Right.
They were just as bad as the kids.
Yeah.
And it was all I could do to focus on what was going on in the movie. Terrible.
Do you know I have a podcast and I'm going to be talking about you? Sometimes it adds to it. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it distracts.
Yeah, these kids, it seemed like this was the last place they wanted to be. They were not invested at all in this movie.
I don't think that this is not a movie that's going to keep kids engrossed.
No, it borderline didn't keep me engrossed. As a matter of fact.
Interesting. So I want to go right from the beginning because this is a Pixar movie. This is the first Pixar movie we've had in theaters in quite some time. It is the first Pixar movie to have a short in front of it since Incredibles 2, which was 5 years ago.
I was very taken aback when this short started.
I forgot because I do remember reading something about it and I forgot about it completely. And then I'm like, wait, didn't Ed Asner die?
He did, but
pass. So apparently he was able to put this in the can.
Yeah, this was voiced in 2021. So a couple of years ago. Yeah.
Okay. But before we get to this Carl's Date mini short, when we saw Into the Spider-Verse, did you see the trailer for Elio?
No.
You didn't.
No.
It's the new Pixar movie, but we didn't get it in front of this movie. Why would you not?
I did see a Disney movie, though. The Haunted Mansion. They played the trailer for me.
Yeah. And you know what we need to pair that up with? Pirates of the Caribbean.
And again, talking about how the lighting was bad in this theater, I could barely see this trailer because it was dark.
Oh, it was dark.
Anyway. Yeah.
That's so you don't see all the wires and all the people hiding behind the wall pulling shit.
Yeah.
So Elio, it's just a teaser trailer. You know, Pixar has been known for those in the past. Just a quick little teaser. But yeah, we got it in front of Spider-Verse, but not this. So this Carl's Date. Carl's now living back in the real world. He's got a house with Doug, the talking dog. And he winds up on a potential date. He agrees to this phone call to have a date. And so now he's all worked up about it. And it goes nowhere.
And no, it doesn't. I was like, why would they base a whole short around this? I say a whole short, which is 9 minutes long. There's not enough to fill that 9 minutes in this short.
No, you don't get Kevin the bird. You get the little weather vane that has Kevin that looks like he had little baby birds. And there's no Russell, which is probably the one character in that movie that kids could relate to. No, let's show them the old man
and Doug
and Doug, who is entertaining. And I will tell you, when Carl is trying to figure out, do I shake her hand? Do I hug her? What do I do? And Doug's like, you smell her behind.
That was a chuckle. Yeah.
Yeah.
Maybe the only one.
That was the only one. It was weird because there was no payoff whatsoever.
They were going for the emotion when he kisses the photo of his
You see the photo up on the wall,
wife.
so you know that she's looming large over. We know the whole it didn't
connect. You know, it didn't, like most of these Pixar shorts are just as devastating emotionally as the feature length films. It just goes to show that a little of Doug goes a very long way, and there's a lot of them in this short.
I didn't know what to make of it. Yeah, all right. So we waited 5 years.
This seems to be this type of thing. Like maybe they could have just dropped on Disney Plus at some point rather than put it in front of a feature film. So it makes you underwhelmed from the get-go, like before this feature even starts.
Yeah. We're gonna talk Disney Plus a little bit more on this.
We're on this soapbox over and over and over again, but it makes you think, okay, they drop this movie in theaters, but leave Turning Red on streaming. I just don't understand it. I'm going to tell you right now, like any Pixar movie, this is gorgeous to look at. Oh, yeah. I completely agree.
The two main characters, they have upped their game. And from what I even read, that they had to go out and get like triple the processing power in order to render these characters and these scenes, because let's get into the story itself.
Yeah. And these details that you bring, you know, about the animation and all these countless people that work on it, it makes me feel bad when I don't completely enjoy a movie because I know how much toil and sweat went into making this thing.
Yeah.
You know, nobody, like you say a lot, nobody sets out to make a bad movie.
No, and I don't necessarily think that this is a bad movie by any means. This is a meh movie.
It's disappointing.
It's nothing we haven't seen before. It's Romeo and Juliet. Elements don't mix. Oh, no, it's an interracial love story. But we know how it's going to play out.
It feels like they back-ended into, well, let's do a Romeo and Juliet. How can we really draw this picture? Let's make them elements, fire and water. They just back into this premise. And that seemed to me to be the most fascinating part of the movie, this whole elemental city, which they just kind of shove aside so you can have this romantic comedy.
Right, because you really don't understand how these people coexist with each other.
Yeah.
I mean, the water people, I'm assuming just based on the hierarchy of what we were shown, that the fire people are like the low of the low.
They're the second-class citizens.
They're the second-class citizens that live in these little towns. They're off-the-boat immigrants that are just trying to forge a life for themselves. And this is, I mean, it's very evident. And Peter Soon, who is the director, and he also directed Good Dinosaur, which is a fantastic movie.
Now, I was never a fan of the Good Dinosaur.
Yeah, I enjoy it for what it is. Yeah, the racial allegory that here's this immigrants, they had to leave their country, so now they're going to come to this whole new world, and they're going to try and carve out an existence in this new world, but somehow retain our cultural identity. But that's as far as it goes. So they're trying
to say that the other elements are completely racist against fire. And it seems like fire is trying to make inroads into this larger world, and they're just getting stymied throughout the movie.
And the water people are the jerks. They're the upper class because they're shooting around in these trains that are splashing water all over everybody. And I'm like, you couldn't have figured out a better system.
Well, this is pretty interesting now because I was reading about the movie after I saw it, and the director, Peter Sohn, who you just mentioned, was explaining a little bit of the backstory of the city, which is never pointed out in the movie. But he says, I feel that water got there first. That's why they populated the city. They started the city. That's why everything seems to be water-based, from the transportation to a number of other things. And then you had earth come in, and then you had air come in, and then suddenly fire is the fourth one, and they're kind of unwelcome. I'm like, well, say that in the movie.
Yeah, something. I guess when you explain it like that, it makes sense. But it's like, all right, now we got three other races here. Maybe we should put up a wall around this water track.
The plot of the movie seems to change in the first 20 minutes, like on a dime. Because first you have, what is her name? Ember. You see her as a baby in the beginning, and she's got, the fire, the immigrant parents coming into this elemental city to open a shop. And she grows up tending behind the counter right next to her father. And it's her father's dream to have her take over the shop someday when she's old enough. And, for a long time, that's her dream too. And then fast forward, and this is all in the first 10 minutes. She's an adult now, and she's still running the counter next to her dad. And she's, when are you going to give me the shop? When are you going to give me the shop? So there's that aspect of it. She wants to take over in her father's footsteps. And then you have the point where she gets mad very easily because, she's fire. She blows up. If you're fire, that means you're passionate. So the first day that her father leaves her alone to tend to the shop by herself, the customers get under her skin. She has to run down into the basement to let out a huge blast of fire. And suddenly there's leaks in their pipes. There's water coming through, and the basement is flooded. And some guy comes out of the pipes, a water guy. And he's a building inspector or a pipe inspector or
he was
something?
An inspector, yeah.
So as soon as he hears that the dad had built this shop, with his own hands, he's like, well, we're going to have to shut you down. There's no permits. I'm sure you don't have any permits, and they don't. So then the movie takes a turn. Okay, I guess this is going to be about this guy shutting the shop down. And then it turns again. It's a romantic comedy. So it turns on a dime at least 3 or 4 times the plot of the movie.
And this is almost like a Three's Company, like, where the entire storyline just revolves around somebody not telling the truth or making up a small little lie, and it becomes this big, huge monster thing. Because all she had to do is just tell her dad what was going on. They could have gotten it fixed. But no, she feels that she caused this, and now she's got to chase after Wade to try and get him to not put these citations in.
Yeah, but that plot point is done halfway through the movie. Okay, the citations are ripped up and thrown out. Okay, I guess that's not the MacGuffin here.
It's funny because at one point, because then he goes to his boss, the cloud lady, Gail, And she's like, all right, you got 48 hours to define where this water is coming from, because the whole thing is that there should be no water in this town. Is he the only building that has pipes in it? He's the only one who's being affected by this. There shouldn't be water in that town. We shut it off years ago. Screw those fire people. So now I'm thinking to myself, oh, this is exactly like Zootopia, because now they have a time limit. They have to go and find out, where's this water coming from? Who's the dubious person that's
it's
like
just
you said,
all it is a leak. It's not like anybody did it on purpose. It's just a leak.
And that's what I'm saying. She's like so distraught that she's ruined her dad's dreams. But yeah, it's a leaky pipe. We get them all the time. But
so
this has become
to your point, why do the fire people even need water? Why do they even need pipes?
Yeah. And nobody claimed that building that he just found and said, I'm going to fix this up. I also want to know, because you do get the backstory. So you got Bernie and Cinder are the parents. And Bernie is a very likable character. I guess maybe now as a dad, I can kind of relate to. He's busted his butt. He just wants something for his family. This is his life. He's built this shop, and he wants this for his daughter, even though, this is the other story arc, which is, this is your dream. It's not my dream, kind of a thing. But
that doesn't come out until like three-quarters of the way through the movie, because before that, you do think it's her dream to take up, because she says so. Right.
Yeah. But she was just lying the whole time because she didn't want to hurt her dad's feelings. But you see this backstory where they have to leave their homeland because their house was destroyed by a storm. But again, were they the only house that was destroyed?
And were they the only ones that left? Everybody else stayed. I'm like, your city is in ruins.
And we saw what she can do by burning sand and making it into glass. Why couldn't you just rebuild your house? It didn't make any sense. It doesn't make any sense. I'm like, wait a minute. They can't rebuild this? No, we got to leave now. And then somehow, I don't know, the dad, for whatever
and
reason,
they're all mad at them for leaving.
Right. The grandfather.
No, you have to stay here and sit in this rubble with us. I'm like,
yeah. His dad refused to bow before him, which was like the biggest insult. So yeah, poor Bernie is just like, I just want something nice for my family.
So then throw into the romantic comedy element where this pipe inspector, who is Water, and what is his name?
Wade. We don't go too creative. Wade Ripple.
So at first, when he comes out of the pipe and they have that, maybe half an hour or so when they're trying to rip up the citations that he's written out for her to close down the shop, it becomes like a buddy comedy. And then it slowly morphs into a romantic comedy.
Will they, won't they?
Will they, won't they? Fire and water.
I don't know.
Kind of
They're opposites.
So then there's a little mystery thrown in because he's trying to find the source of this leak that is flooding various parts of Firetown. And they do find it. But like we said, it's not anything nefarious. It's just a leak. And she fixes it with her glass blowing.
Well, they
powers.
tried. I think that it takes them like 3 times, because the first time they just sandbag it.
Yeah.
And then that doesn't take. So then she's got to go back, and it's bursting again. And this is where, now she's like, wait a minute, I can melt sand into glass. But even that doesn't take. At the end, we get the big catastrophic deluge that destroys the entire Firetown.
That flood happens at the end. And then there's another scene that kind of is another plot point where Ember has told Wade a story from her childhood where they weren't allowed into a museum exhibit because they were fire people to see some kind of special flower.
They're kind of destructive. I hate to say it, but you can't put she does wear the little hood over her head, which I guess is kind of like the clothes that they're wearing almost look like little Kevlar, like the fireproof jackets that firemen wear. That kind of keeps their element to themselves. Because the scene where she's in the train, she's like burning up the tree. What if I had the interview that day?
Yeah,
for my big interview, and you walk by me and incinerate all of my leaves. But again, like you said, the idea of these 4 elements commingling and existing together doesn't really, other than to say that, fire people, we don't like fire people. You might as well just have called her a fox.
Yeah.
Don't want you in our neighborhood.
So then at the very end, when the waters break through, Ember and Wade are trapped in the shop. They're trying to save the blue flame, which is their father's energy source, or, it's kind of like the midichlorians. I don't know what it is.
Nope, just a blue flame that we need to keep from
So they actually managed to bubble themselves off from the floodwaters, but the room itself is so hot because of the flame that Wade evaporates. So you can tell they were trying to go for the big emotional moment here, but it just wasn't selling it.
No, because we just saw earlier when she's chasing him that he can turn into water, which is what he is, and sneak through crevices of rocks. Yep. So why couldn't he do that? Even though he was boiling away.
Which he kind of does as steam, I guess, because he evaporates and then he comes back into water at the end. So he's not actually dead.
Yeah. But there's this weird, you go back to the wisteria flower, that this is all she's ever wanted to see her entire life. So at some point he takes her there. So that whole stadium that used to be open to the public is now underwater. And she takes him there. And this is like, he makes a little air bubble. You got 20 minutes and he takes her down and they see the flower. And this is actually a really nice sequence, but it's Waterworld. This is exactly what Kevin Costner does with the girl and takes her underneath the waters to go see the ruins of Manhattan.
The ending, we had mentioned before that there's a flashback to Ember's parents leaving their homeland and the father does not bow, which is customary in their society. The father does not bow to the son as the boat's sailing away. And it's always bothered the father that his father never showed him that respect. So at the end, the big emotional moment, even more so than Wade dying and then coming back to life, is when Ember is going off to realize her dream. It's not to run the family shop, but to become an artist, basically. And she bows to the father and he bows back. So
I did tear up.
Well, I didn't, but
fair enough.
This family or families that were making so much commotion during the movie, it didn't appear to me that they were taking anything in what was happening in the movie. But one of the women suddenly says, "Oh, she's going to bow to him." I'm like, you even caught that from the middle of the movie?
Well, that right there shows you that there are no surprises in this.
Yeah.
This is by the numbers. There's some cute moments.
But let me ask you this.
Yes.
And again, we have to say every week, maybe we're reading too much into this, or maybe we're looking at this too closely. But okay, this is a city of elements. And they use water to get around. They use water for a lot of things. Isn't water itself people?
You are.
How can they have water outside of the water people if water is personified?
And I don't know. And at one point, water's going to have to boil some pasta. So they're going to have to use their neighbor, the fire neighbor, to.
And poor earth and air, they get short shrift in this. They are just swept aside because this is a romantic comedy. We got no room for your stories here. It's only about fire and water.
Yeah, we shoehorned them in. I'm assuming there's no winter. Otherwise, all the water people would freeze.
Yeah, we are thinking too much into this.
Yeah, gorgeous to look at.
It is.
And I hate to say it, but yeah. Wait until it drops on Disney Plus.
Yeah, I just couldn't follow. It didn't have a one cohesive story for me to follow. It was just all over the place, and it never. None of these little facets, these story offshoots, were engaging to me at all. I did like the characters, of Ember and Wade, but they just weren't in the right setting, which is unbelievable because Elemental City seems to be a perfect setting. Explore that.
Yeah, no, and I thought the voice acting was pretty spot on. It's funny because the last 3 Pixar movies have basically been about main characters turning into animals, right? We had Turning Red, Soul, and Luca.
Right.
But this is I think this looks nice on paper. You're like, oh, we could really do something with this. It just didn't, it played it safe, which Pixar is not known to do. Pixar is all about taking chances. That's you want to tell an interracial story. That's fine. Tell an interracial story, but
I don't even know if it played it safe. It played it fragmented. It was just very they are so adept at storytelling normally, and it just didn't come together.
I did see Pete Docter's name in there somewhere in the credits. So something's lost in translation because and I know that Peter Soon he said that this is it's directly based on his experience as a kid emigrating from Korea to the U.S., where he didn't speak English and his parents moved to the Bronx. They opened up a little bodega shop he's speaking from experience, and there's a lot of relationships between Ember and her dad that are relatable, but to a kid, they don't care. There was one little boy, Claude, who was the little plant, who obviously had a huge crush on Ember, and he was constantly hitting on her. He was the funniest part of this whole movie.
Yeah, I did like
at one
that
point,
character.
his little hit line was, "Hey, if you were a vegetable, you'd be a cucumber."
And then his major move was to grow a flower out of his armpit.
Look at me, I'm all grown up.
Yeah,
I grew a flower. Yeah, I did like the fact that the animators all get top credit long before you ever get to the voice actors.
and there's no post credits or mid credits. So
No,
unless you want to stay to watch the Luxo jump around, then there's no point in staying.
that's about it.
That is about it.
That is about it.
Underwhelming. I've seen a lot of headlines, has Pixar lost its magic? And I think that's unfair. That's obviously an overstatement. But yeah, this is a misfire. For me, anyway. Again, this is just our own opinions. Wasn't for me.
And I think that Christina was spot on with this pairing, because there are a lot of similarities between this and Zootopia,
and
which is not a Pixar movie. That is a Disney animated.
Yeah, and it didn't help that I watched Zootopia the night before I went to go see this, so I couldn't help but compare it.
There are a lot of comparisons. The one other thing I'm going to shout out at the end, if you sit all the way through the credits, they do have remembrances for 3 Pixar employees who have passed. Thomas Gonzalez, who was assistant editor for 19 years, and he passed after a fight with cancer. Amber Matroli, who was an animator for 8 years, and J. Garrett Sheldrew, who was a story artist for Pixar for 14. Well, you figure first Pixar was Toy Story 95?
95, yes.
95. So they've, I think it's harsh to say they've lost their mojo, so to speak. I don't know. We'll see. Elio is next on the list. I think that drops next year.
And speaking of the original Toy Story, I don't know if this is true or not, but one source that I read online said that this was the lowest grossing out of the gate Pixar movie since the first Toy Story.
It's because nobody knew what they were getting.
Yeah, that's the thing, is that was like uncharted territory back then.
Interesting.
But it had legs. Obviously, we know that. We'll have to wait and see if Elemental has legs. Buckets. I'm almost reluctant to give this bucket.
For the artistic integrity of it all, I am going to give it 3. I do think that, again, Pixar has stepped up. You look at Ember, and she's constantly flickering and flaming, and all her outlines. And when she gets really sad, the flame kind of dissipates. When she gets angry, like you mentioned, when she gets angry, she turns purple. Wade, who's constantly reflecting. I mean, the one thing you've always been told in animation is that water is the most expensive and most impossible thing to animate. And yet here, it looks like water. It's not like Little Mermaid where you're underwater. It's water gushing. It's water pouring. You have water characters that are interacting with other surfaces. And for that alone, I'm probably giving it 2.5.
Right. I am going to go just under 3. And that, again, just like you, it's all about the technical aspect of this.
Yeah.
Because, it is just like any Pixar movie. It's gorgeous to look at, and they don't disappoint on that level. That was the only thing I had to kind of cling to. So 2 3/4 buckets from me.
Just as a quick side note, any chance you caught the Planet Pizza truck?
I did not. Where was it?
So when Ember's mom, Cinder, follows her into Watertown, and she's outside the hotel fighting with the doorman. Yeah. The pizza truck's in the background.
Oh, okay.
So there you go. Stay for the pizza truck.
Yeah.
I don't know.
You don't get Ratzenberger anymore.
No.
But you get the pizza truck still.
Yeah, that's about the only Pixar carryover we get.
All right. So let's try to lift our spirits by going to the concession stand.
Okay.
So what do we have?
What do you think I'm going to go with here? I'm going to tell you right now. It is paired. I was inspired by this movie.
Big Red?
Close. one of the Bernie's go-to treats was a hot log.
Okay.
And so we are going with atomic fireballs.
Oh, nice.
So
I wasn't thinking hot enough, I think, with
hot.
Big Red.
This is probably the hottest candy out there. I'm sure there are other candies that have been created that have a bigger kick. But as a kid, everybody had a fireball. It's been a while.
Yes. It was something to endure as a kid.
Yes, we'll talk about that. So yes, atomic fireballs. It's introduced in 1954. And are you ready for this? Created by Nello Ferrera.
Way back in 1954?
1954. The Ferrera Pan Candy Company in Forest Park, Illinois. That's right. None other. They didn't even pilfer this from somebody else.
I was going to say, every other time we've mentioned them, they've purchased it, right? They've purchased the candy in question.
This is theirs outright. They have owned this from day one. Yes. So basically, a fireball, anybody who has never had one, and I can't believe that is the case, but it's a spicy hot ball. I don't know, like a sweet burning cinnamony deliciousness, right? It's like this little, the recipe is basically sugar, corn syrup, and various spices such as cinnamon and capsium, which is a component found in chili peppers.
Oh, so that's what brings the heat then.
Yes. So this is known because it has a hot and spicy flavor. Red, fireball red. 1954, this box literally had an atomic explosion on it. So they were feeding off this idea that, everyone's living under the auspice that nuclear war could break out at any time. So why not have something?
Let's just embrace that.
Let's put something spicy in your mouth. Well, that's right around the time all the atomic monsters were showing up, and
yes, this is true.
Movies and whatnot. So the first box actually held 120 individually wrapped fireballs for a penny each. And when they were originally began production in 1954, they could put out 200 cases of the candy each day, and it quickly took off. I mean, kids just went nuts for this. And with 6 months, they were exceeding 50,000 cases a day. There was a major demand. But this pan candy line, so they took these other candies that they were making at the time, Lemon Heads, Red Hots, and Boston Baked Beans, and they just kind of used this whole method to kind of recreate this, or to create this ball that, if you remember, when you put it in your mouth, it was cinnamon overload. And I think it was like, how long could you keep this in your mouth before you have to spit it back out?
But if you stuck with it and you kept it in your mouth, you got past that hot layer, and then it just became kind of like a sugar ball, if I'm not mistaken.
Yes. Yeah. So if you actually had it in your mouth long enough, the sugar, the red goes away, and it's just a white ball.
Yeah. Like like a little mini jawbreaker kind of thing.
And then, of course, you'd always have to bite it in half to see what's in the middle.
Exactly. Yeah. You were hoping to get like a red nucleus in the middle, but I don't think that was.
No, that was never it. Because I'm sure there's somebody out there right now going, they weren't that hot. But as a kid,
yeah, they
were spicy.
Yeah.
3,500 Scoville heat units is the equivalent of jalapenos. So if you want to pop a jalapeno in your mouth and chew down on that, you'll get the equivalent of a fireball.
I can't really say that it was an enjoyable experience.
Go back to Elemental, where Wade's chewing down on the hot ember ball that the dad made, and he's like, it's real hot. It's hot. Oh, it's okay. Not too bad. You're right. It's an endurance test. You and your friends both put one in the mouth at the same time. Who can keep it in there longer? They are actually on display at the Museum of Radiation and Radiology.
Wow.
So maybe just because of the nuclear explosion on the box, I don't know. But there's other candies out there now. Like, there's a whole market for these hot candies. There's a Carolina Reaper gumball. And if you know what, the Carolina Reaper is probably the hottest pepper out there. I can't imagine that this is enjoyable. And there's another one called Little Nitro, which is made by the Flamethrower Candy Company.
Oh, does that have Adam Sandler as its spokesperson? Wasn't that a movie? Oh, Little Nicky. Okay.
Little Nicky. Yeah. So here's the weird thing, which was there's a lot of rumors online that these are discontinued. the story goes that excessive rain has reduced supplies of cassia cinnamon and a shortage of bark peelers in Sri Lanka similarly affected Ceylon cinnamon. It's a supply and demand thing, and that these have been discontinued. But I was able to find them on Amazon, so unless there's like old stock and they're just not making new.
Now that you say that, whenever it's my turn to do a concession stand, I always try to get the candy so I can sample it, right?
Yeah.
So I'm very familiar now with my local Walgreens candy aisle. My eyes always go over the Boston Baked Beans box. They always go over the Lemonheads box, which is the same family, as you just said, from the Ferrara company.
Right.
But I can't remember if I've ever seen an Atomic Fireballs box.
Yeah, I mean,
on the shelf.
Not that I went on my way looking for them, but yeah, I found a 240 count bucket on Amazon for $38.
Wow. Okay.
And they're individually wrapped, so they're not going to go stale.
So they come in a box individually wrapped.
Yes, correct. And that's the way they've been since day one.
Okay.
So the Ferrara company still owns them. They have never changed the name. They have never changed the recipe. This is exactly what you would have gotten in 1954. So yeah, I mean, the discontinued thing, like I said, it's an online rumor. I did read an article where somebody contacted somebody from Ferrara, and they said, as far as we know, it is not discontinued. But that's neither a here nor there.
This seems
as far
to be
as I know.
This seems to be the perfect candy that would have an urban legend attached to it, like somebody's head exploded or something when they tried an Atomic Fireball.
Yeah. And speaking of which, I had to look this up because there is a Fireball whiskey.
There is.
I'm like, is it related?
Is it affiliated?
No. So the booze was started out as part of Seagram's line of flavored schnapps in the mid 80s. It came along well after the candy. It was called Dr. McGillicuddy's Fireball Cinnamon Whiskey, named for the mythical Aloysius Percival McGillicuddy. And it was only made in Canada, but it is not associated with the candy.
Oh, it would be so cool if it was. If it was made from the same ingredients, right?
Yeah, why not just put a Fireball in your shot?
Yeah.
How come no one has made like a drink with this? So yeah, Fireball. There you go. Atomic Fireball.
It should come with a spit jar. So, once it's too unbearable, you can ding, just
every
a spittoon. Yeah.
Every candy shop has a spittoon in the corner.
Yeah.
Fireball over there.
All right. Well played. So let's go back to the theater.
All right. Let's go.
Sit down. Maybe we can just jump on the train and take a short trip to the next city over. Which
Imagine
in this
if these
case,
live together.
I know if they're on the same map, on the same planet. They're two different continents, right? So maybe it's like a channel we're going to be taking.
The channel.
Zootopia is our second feature, as we already mentioned up front. But Zootopia itself, it has various districts, right? So you've got a rainforest district, you've got like a frozen tundra district. So there's all these various weather patterns that exist.
Yeah, I do want to see a map of this place.
It's like Middle Earth, right? It's great world building that just really isn't in the first film. This is what I wanted to see. And the story of Zootopia is based around Zootopia itself. So I think that's what I was comparing as well when I was watching Elemental. You don't get that right up front, just as a way to give the viewer kind of a bird's eye view of Zootopia. You have like a kindergarten school play. Through the exposition in the play, the history of Zootopia is set up, where the world that this exists in used to be a basic world of predator versus prey. But we have evolved. And now we all live.
Have we?
Yeah, but now we all live in harmony. You're given the lay of the land, like right in the first 5 minutes. It's a really cute scene as well, because they try to show a predator stalking its prey using red streamers and ketchup and blah, blah.
Yeah, you got me. Reminds me of the play in the Addams Family where she was stabbing.
But we're introduced to the character of Judy Hopps.
Yeah.
It's her dream to be a police officer. The world itself, it's not really quite evolved because there never really has been a bunny, as they call her, police officer. It's a predator type job, like a tough guy type job. But she doesn't
Nope.
see the world that way.
No, she's meant to stay on the farm. Nice to see bigotry alive and well in the animal kingdom. Prejudice and sexism. And the one thing when she's going on about, what she wants to do, and the dad is, he's like, well, I need you on the farm. It is reminiscent of Ember being told that she needs to take over the family business at some point.
Yeah, but Judy resists that from day one. She never wants to take over the family business.
But the dad's like, we gave up on our dreams and settled.
Yeah,
we settled hard. And I'm like, this poor guy, he didn't even have a chance. This is not what I wanted to do at all.
No.
But here we are. Carrot farming is a noble cause.
But he's really just a victim of the society's norms, right?
Aren't we all?
Zootopia is supposed to be this really progressive place, but it's not really. But Judy is set out to change that. But as she takes the train, this is the world building as well. She gets on the train and you see the world open up from her little podunk hometown going into the city, going through all these districts that the train goes through. And you see the big reveal finally of the city portion of Zootopia. Yeah. And it's like an awe-inspiring scene, which is probably the most memorable, I think, because you're seeing the city for the first time through her eyes. They don't shirk on the visuals here for Zootopia. And I enjoyed, because I've seen this before, obviously, but I liked now, rather than just trying to take it all in, looking at all the little details of what's going on the right-hand side of the screen or the left-hand side of the screen, trying to take in what these animators really put into this, to think about, even with Elemental, that all that detail is there as well.
Yeah.
You could watch something like this 50 times and not see everything that's going on.
Yeah, I will tell you, as somebody who grew up in a very rural town and fantasized about Manhattan, I can definitely relate to this rabbit wanting to get out of. I don't want to farm carrots. I have bigger ambitions.
Yeah.
And just being taken in. I remember Manhattan. To me, it was Oz. It was just, all of a sudden I'm going through the Bronx and there's abandoned cars on the side of the road on fire. I've never seen that before in my life. Mm-hmm. We missed that side of Zootopia, but still, yeah, it's this little rabbit, and she's tiny. She's so vulnerable. It's scary, because she's just this little bunny that she's going to go out and she's going to change the world. And she learns pretty quickly that might not happen.
Yeah, and when she goes into the city, I think that's the first time you hear that Shakira song.
Yeah.
Now, I am not a Shakira fan nor a particular fan of this style of pop music, but personally, this song means a lot, because when the movie came out, my son was 5 or 6 years old, and we used to listen on the Sirius satellite radio. There's a kids channel, and they would play that Shakira song incessantly. So it makes me think immediately of my son as a young kid. Yeah. So that emotion also comes up. It's a personal thing for me. It kind of sets me off, that hearing that song.
Do you now envision Shakira as a gazelle?
I still don't. No, that still doesn't work for me. That's that visual still doesn't work for me.
I would recognize the gazelle before I recognize Shakira. I can tell you, I don't know what she looks like. So
before Judy gets on the train, she does pass the police academy. So she's all set up to start work when she gets on the train and goes into Zootopia. And unfortunately, she gets assigned to traffic cop duty.
Meter maid.
Yeah, she's a meter maid. She's lovely Rita.
Meter maid. Oh, sorry. Hey, that's a noble profession. That's where the city makes most of their money.
That's where the money comes in.
I think she issued 200 tickets before June.
She did. Yeah.
Listen, use those little rabbit feet. So, but this is where we're introduced to Clawhauser, who is a snow leopard. This guy's my favorite character. I love him. He's just a doofy.
And I didn't realize this. I'm going to have to watch this again now. There's a hidden Mickey on Clawhauser's face.
Oh, I did read that. Yeah. In his spots.
In his spots. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a little fun. I mentioned before the voice casting in the first movie, and outside of Idris Elba, I was like, Nick, who's the fox? I'm like, it sounds like Jason Bateman. And then because he's very low key, Usually when you animate as a character, you are over the top. You're enunciating. You're really kind of bringing it. And this character is so kind of like chill.
He's not doing a voice. He's just himself.
Which is fine. You don't need to put on a voice.
What's funny is that maybe you saw this too, but on the IMDb, when you look at all the trivia nuggets about the various movies, one of them was Jason Bateman saying, like from an interview, how when he went in for the first day, when he went to the recording studio for this, he asked the directors, okay, what voice do you want me to do? And he says, they looked at me like I was an idiot.
Right.
Like we hired you to do you. Yeah.
Yeah. But I get it. Right. It's like, all right, I will say, and we haven't even gotten there yet, but Nick the Fox, stylized, very reminiscent of Disney's Robin Hood. Maybe that was pre Zootopia. Yeah, he's a great grandson
of Robin of Locksley.
Maybe he just lost his British accent along the way.
But the overarching plot line of this is revealed when, on the same morning that Judy gets her first assignment as a traffic cop, Idris Elba, as Chief Bogo, says that there are 14 missing mammals. There's missing persons, missing mammals case.
Missing mammals.
So he's assigning various police officers to a few of the different missing mammals. And Judy's all excited because she thinks that she's going to get at least one of these missing mammals. And nope, she gets the traffic cop. But as the film goes on, she becomes entwined with the missing mammals case because she meets Emmett Otterton's wife, Chief Bogo, or the mayor. Nobody can give her an answer that she's happy with about her missing husband. But Judy says, I'm going to find him. So from this point on, she has a mission to find Emmett Otterton. The chief's
not very happy with that either.
Yeah.
Who's going to write all these tickets? Is that before or after she meets Nick?
Let's talk about that. Nick Wilde, who is the fox, she sees him, overhears him with what appears to be his son, because he is being kicked out of an ice cream shop that's run by an elephant because he's a fox and nobody trusts foxes.
Yep. We have the right to refuse service to anyone. And again, I'm like, wow, bigotry is like, and of course she's complete. Oh, he's a fox. He must be doing something wrong.
She's suspicious right away. She follows him into the shop and then she overhears what's going on. He's just trying to buy his son a giant oversized ice pop. The elephant will not give him service.
Giant icicle pop.
It is.
By the way. That is the biggest popsicle I've ever seen in my entire life. How big is your freezer?
Well, there's a reason he wants that ice pop that big, as we see a little bit later. Yeah. So
he's an opportunist.
So the elephant is refusing him service. Judy hears this and wanting to do the right thing. She steps up, intercedes, and makes the elephant sell him an ice pop. And of course, Nick is like, oh, I forgot my wallet. And
oldest trick in the book.
So now Judy not only has enabled him to get the ice pop, she has to pay for it as well.
Think of the child.
So what he's doing, it's like a baby fenster, the child. It's not a child's.
No, yeah. That is a deep cut right there, but you are correct. Oh, Finsta baby.
He's melting down the ice pops to make mini ice pops. And he's like makes 100 out of this one giant elephant ice pop. And he turns around and sells them to hamsters. What are they? Hamsters.
Like, hamsters
coming out of an office building
for $2 each. That is all profit right there because Judy paid for it. I'm assuming that, I don't know, he stole the popsicle sticks, but hey, he's an entrepreneur. Yeah. The one thing I noticed on all these animals, there are no snakes. Did you not see a snake?
I don't think I did. No.
Yeah. Do you know what you call a snake that builds houses? A boa constrictor. So stupid. He's got that killer van. But
that's Baby Fenster's van, right? Or is that's okay?
Well, I mean, I think it was like their base of operations, but yeah, I don't think it was Nick's.
So it's after we get introduced to Nick where we have the scene with Emmett Otterton's wife, and then Judy promises that she'll find him, and she gets fired for doing that. But the mayor's assistant, Miss Bellwether, overhears. And she intercedes and Judy's not fired. She's like, there's an equality initiative in effect here. Judy cannot be fired.
Yeah, this goes into the her chasing the weasel, who looks like Scrat from Ice Age, by the way.
Yes, he does.
The weasel is voiced by Alan Tudyk.
I thought it was Steve Buscemi at first.
He looks like Steve Buscemi. What kind of voice you want me to do? Do a Steve Buscemi.
Yep.
Okay, I got it. Let's go. Yes. She chases him right through this little city, this tiny mouse city, which I thought was brilliant.
Yes. Yeah, I love this sequence.
Because it's little Rodentia. So right, you have to think about all these other little like these little mice. And at some point when she was writing up parking tickets, you saw like a little car go by or whatever, but you can't coexist like that. You're a giraffe or an elephant driving a car next to a mouse. That mouse will never make it to work. So they have their own little city, and she's running through us, and all of a sudden it's like this giant monster chase scene where she's jumping over buildings and trying not to step on the cars and the people, and I'm like, this is great.
Yeah, and there's one scene where they're hopping on top of the buildings, and he ends up knocking them down like dominoes, and she has to push them back. All
those poor little mice. They're just trying to go about their day, and it was walled off, so theoretically she shouldn't have been in there. But then neither should the weasel.
So when she catches the weasel, that's when she has the opportunity to meet Emmett Otterton's wife. Mm-hmm. So then from this point on, she's back on she gets fired for a second, then she gets back on the force. And then it turns into a buddy comedy because she has to find Nick because there's a photo of Emmett eating a popsicle. And Nick has already been outed as, reselling these popsicles at this point. So she makes him, she's got like a confession on her little carrot pen.
This is illegal, by the way.
Yeah.
She's illegally recording him without his consent. But before that, when she's getting chewed out by Chief Bogo, he's like, this is not some animated cartoon where you can just sing a song and everything goes away. And he goes, just let it go. And I'm like, well, that's a none too subtle Frozen reference. But
right. Which was huge at the time this movie came out. So
yeah, this was what, 2016?
Yeah, I remember seeing this in the theater, and the laugh that joke was deafening.
I still laughed at it. I chuckled.
Yeah,
let it go. But then this is where Nick leads her to, all right, well, we're going to have to go someplace that you're going to be uncomfortable with, whatever it takes. I got to find this. I got to find this otter. We go to Mystic Springs Oasis, which turns out to be a nudist colony, which is actually very funny. Spot on casting with Tommy Chong as the Zen yak. Yeah,
because apparently Emmett Otterton frequents this colony. And
I'm pretty sure that Mrs. Otterton does not know that he frequents nudist colony. She apparently had clothes on, but
yeah, there's lots of downward dog going on here.
Yeah,
but Tommy Chong gives them a clue because he saw Emmett get into a car and he's got the license plate. So this brings them to the DMV and the big scene.
This is the one thing I remember, and I mentioned it again last week. I remember seeing this once. And this was the one scene, the sloths at the DMV are the funniest part of the movie. But after rewatching this, I may have to rethink my take on this.
Well, it's over familiarity. It's now that you know that this scene is coming. It doesn't play as funny as like the rest of the movie does for me. Yeah, because you
become just as impatient as Judy does.
Yeah,
you're like, all right, hey Mabel.
But this brings them to the Tundra Town limo service. And this limo service is owned by a shrew who is like Marlon Brando in The Godfather, Mr. Big.
Yeah.
You sold me a skunk butt rug.
Right. But that's a joke, too, when they're being dragged there. And he was like, oh, no, it's Mr. Big. And you do big, giant polar bears. And then each one that comes into the room is even bigger. And she's like, is that Mr. Big? Is that Mr. Big? Is that Mr. Big? And then it's this little tiny shrew.
But have you ever seen a shrew? We had shrews here in the house at one point. They are frightening things. They are like mutant rats.
The only thing worse is a star-nosed mole. A star-nosed mole has like almost like a hand on its nose.
Ugh.
Yeah, look them up. They're actually really cool.
I'll have to. Otterton was my florist for the wedding.
Sweet cheese and crackers, he says at one point. I think that was Nick.
But so according to Mr. Big, they sent a car for him. So that was the car that picked him up from the nudist colony because they were going to bring him to talk about the wedding. But all Mr. Big knows is that he went nuts in the car, ripped up the inside of his car and ran away and frightened his chauffeur.
Yes.
who is a
Go find the
jaguar,
chauffeur.
another predator. So now they have to find the chauffeur to find out what happens, and they have to go to the rainforest district to do this.
This is what you were saying before. This is beautiful stuff. I
Yeah.
mean, we're going and so they have a timeline. She's got what, 48 hours to figure this out.
Yeah,
Or
because
she has to give up her badge. Yeah.
well, all she's got to do is go to Bellwether again, and then she's hired.
Yeah,
so
right. Wow.
there's no danger there. But so they have to track down the jaguar, who suddenly turns feral and attacks them. I remember seeing this in the theater with my son, who was 5 at the time.
Pretty
and
intense.
this scared him, this scene. I remember. He was hiding his face.
Because it's also nighttime in the jungles. So she's well out of her element. So is Nick, for that matter. And it's shot a lot in the dark. And he's scary. He's not. Yeah. It's like a werewolf coming after them.
But before he goes feral, he does say something that Emmett was talking about night howlers in the back of his car.
Yeah.
Which makes perfect sense because this guy is a florist. If you hang in there a little bit later, it all makes sense.
Yeah. This is this is kind of like the world building and the actual, as the plot goes on, that you're missing completely from Elemental, by the way.
Yeah.
A payoff, I guess.
Because this kind of triggers Nick. All this talk about predators reverting back to their natural selves, quote unquote. All he wanted to do when he was a little kid was to join Junior Ranger Scouts. So you're already setting up a parallel between him and Judy here. So they have this in common. They had these aspirations as kids that society did not want them to carry through with. No. In Nick's case, it was just being like a Boy Scout. So he goes very excitedly to his first meeting, and very cruelly, the other kids put a muzzle on him and throw him out the door. I'm like, arrest those kids for assault. First of all.
This is, and you wonder why the guy's the way he is. Doesn't trust anybody. Yep.
So you want me to be a fox? I'm going to be a fox. This is River Phoenix and Stand By Me. This is Chris Chambers.
Cheap dime store hood.
Yeah.
Yeah, so, it's heartbreaking when you see it.
Yeah.
He's all excited. He's in this little junior Ranger Scout uniform. They were not nice to him.
So they get the idea to take a look at the traffic cameras, to access these cameras to see exactly what happened that night, that they were attacked by the limo driver. They do see that he's taken away by wolves. The wolves go to a secret, like, waterfall-based location that looks like that building in the Bugs Bunny cartoon where he goes when he falls asleep and he floats on his mattress.
Yes.
And he goes to the big red Frankenstein guy. Yeah.
Monsters lead such interesting lives.
It's an abandoned hospital that's on the base, that's like teetering on this waterfall. They find a lab in it with caged animals, all 14 of the missing mammals. Number 15 is the limo driver. That's a new addition. Yep. So there's Emmett, and he tries to attack them, like, in his cage. We find out that it's the mayor that's holding all these animals there.
J.K. Simmons, by the way.
Yeah.
We did bring a big lion. So the mayor's lying. He's a lion who's lying.
So the mayor is arrested, and he's claiming his innocence, that he's just holding them there. It's a damn Spider-Man.
I'm not the victim.
So this means that Bellwether is the new mayor.
Which was her plan all along.
So Judy really becomes a figurehead for Bellwether. She gives a press conference. We think that the predators are going back to their savage states. Nick is very offended by this. So there's a break in their relationship for a little bit during the movie because she offends him with her speech. Are you scared of me? And he leaves. So
she flinches.
But as the mayor's being taken away, he's like, I meant for the right thing. All I was doing was holding them to figure out what was wrong with them.
We just didn't tell anybody.
But Bellwether, after this press conference, it turns out that they want her to be the public face of the Zootopia Police Department. And the breaking point for Judy is when Clawhauser is moved from his prominent position as like the front desk guy. They move him downstairs. They don't want a predator to be the face of Zootopia. So she questions everything that's going on, and she quits, and she goes back home to settle and become a carrot farmer, just like her parents are. But that's when it connects. It's like it's all tied together, because as she goes back home, she figures out what these night howlers are. which are flowers that drive you crazy. So she puts it all together. The weasel in the beginning of the movie that she chased was stealing night howlers and selling them to a ram named Doug. Now, this is a great scene because Doug, this is like Breaking Bad, right? So he's got all the
Yes,
Walter White ephemera on.
You are correct. Yeah.
Doug the ram has a secret lab where he's distilling these night howlers into darts or something, where he's shooting these mammals and making them crazy. So they're like paintballs that he's making the night howlers into.
You do see earlier when she does make amends with Nick, she has a little napkin filled with blueberries and he pockets them. You're like, oh, this is coming back in.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. But we find out that Bellwether is the bad guy. Oh, she's the bad guy?
The sheep? Do you think when she sleeps, she actually dreams of herself?
That's actually a joke in the movie, isn't it?
No. Didn't
they say that in the movie?
I don't know. I think you wanted it to happen. I don't know. All right. If I stole it from the movie itself, then I apologize.
But Bellwether, she monologues. She wants to wipe out the predators and have like a prey-based society.
But this doesn't make any sense to me because everybody was getting along. There's no issues. If you showed me that there were a posse of foxes or something else, bears that were running around terrorizing people, it didn't make any sense.
Well, think of it this way. The way that the society, we have already established that Zootopia isn't as perfect a society as it would like to think. It would like us to think that it is, because first of all, Judy, in the scheme of things, is not supposed to be a police officer.
Right.
There are roles that prey and predators hold. So Bellwether is really trying to grasp a role of power in the society, and she can't. So she puts the mayor away. It's a very convoluted way of doing it.
Because he's a lion, which is a predator. But Bogo, who's in charge of the police, is a water buffalo. He is not a predator.
No, so he's okay in this new society that Bellwether is trying to.
Clawhauser, who is like pretty low on the totem pole when it comes to the police force, wasn't a threat. I don't know. I just didn't see like what her end game was.
Well, her end game was to be mayor. She was going to oversee this new prey-based society.
You campaign and you.
But regardless, okay. Again, maybe we're looking too much into this aspect of it.
You think?
And so when Nick goes feral on Judy, it was scary
because he got shot. He gets shot
because this is the character.
This whole end sequence is fantastic though, because the lab is inside an abandoned train car.
Yeah,
so it's actually a really fun end action sequence. But you're right. Bellwether shoots him with the gun. He turns feral and immediately is ready to pounce and eat Judy. And it is scary. Yeah, he looks scary.
He does, but he's just playing. He's acting the part. Him and Judy are acting because it's revealed that he switched out the night howler paintball to just be blueberries. So he's not actually feral.
Yeah.
They've coerced a confession with the same pen that Judy coerced a confession out of, Nick.
Yeah. How long is the recording on this little ad?
I don't know.
Carrot pen. This is also how they call Mr. Waternoose at the end of Monsters Inc., by the way.
Yes. So at the end, Nick kind of sort of realizes his dream of becoming like a Boy Scout. He does the next best thing as an adult by becoming a police officer along with Judy. So they're partners at the end of the movie. And this just begs for me a sequel.
A series.
A straight up sequel. Because I started to watch this Zootopia Plus that's on Disney.
Oh.
It's not a continuation of this story. All it is just little shorts featuring secondary characters from the original movie.
Do we get Clawhauser?
Well, I only watched the first two.
Oh.
The first one is when in the movie itself, when Judy's parents put her on the train. Apparently, Judy has a little baby sister that we don't really see that much in the movie, if at all. So she climbs on the train after Judy, unbeknownst to the parents. So there's this madcap chase with the father on the train that Judy's on going into Zootopia to get the baby.
This is Incredibles. This is Jack.
So as I'm watching this, I'm like, I don't want to have to think when I watch Zootopia that all this madcap chase is going on this same train.
Interesting.
And then in the second episode, it's all about Mr. Big's daughter, the bride. So there's a little vignette about her story and getting ready for the wedding. So it's not really a continuation of Nick and Judy.
It's just expanding the world with all the characters. I don't buy the whole little sister thing. They're rabbits and she only has one sister.
Yeah, because she says at one point, we're very good at multiplying,
Yeah. No, there's got to be like 50 of them out there.
Yeah, it was only one. So again, at the very end, it's a feel-good ending. You get the Shakira song.
Yep. You get a whole Shakira concert.
I really like this. Again, maybe it's a little bit unfair to watch something like this right before going into Elemental. Not that it would make Elemental any better if you didn't watch this beforehand, but it just really accentuates
side by side
what's lacking.
Comparisons, right? Because there are a lot of similarities. I really kind of dismissed this movie the first time I saw it, and I even threw shade at it last week because this did win Best Animated Feature in 2017.
It's rare that the Disney movie of the big Disney movie of that year.
Well, it was up against Kubo and the Two Strings, which I absolutely adore. I think it was, everything.
So you had a grudge. You had a grudge against Zootopia.
Absolutely against it, because Kubo and the Two Strings is a stop motion animation hand rendered masterpiece and I just felt that artistically it was leaps and bounds above this. This is just a stupid Disney kids cartoon movie. And so I really did dismiss it. And then after watching this, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it now. I mean, there's a lot going on here with the bigotry and the prejudice and not even a corruption, but I mean, if you want to get down to it, that the sheep's willing to sacrifice half of the citizens just so she can obtain power as a mayor. But the characters are very likable. I like this a lot.
Yeah,
I apologize.
For a few years there, when Pixar was really in its stride, year after year, they were just hitting it out of the park with their movies. Monsters Inc., WALL-E, the list goes on. And so for a while, it was like, can Disney even exist without Pixar?
Yeah.
But I think movies like Zootopia really show that Disney has more than made up. They are right on an equal level when they want to be with Pixar in terms of emotion, in terms of storytelling. And Zootopia is a prime example of that.
Correct me if I'm wrong, but I do believe I saw John Lasseter's name attached to this.
Yeah, because for a while he was like executive producer for Disney Studios.
Right. So, and say what you will about what happened to him, but he did have a very commanding vision for some of these movies. So
two directors, Byron Howard and Rich Moore. Now, Byron Howard has some really impressive directing credentials on his resume. Both Tangled, which was huge for Disney.
Tangled. That is very underrated, by the way.
And Encanto. Say what you will about Encanto. Lots and lots of people love that movie, and he directed it. Rich Moore, his co-director, is the helmer of the Wreck-It Ralph movies, both Wreck-It Ralph and Ralph Breaks the Internet. So you've got impressive resumes for both of these guys. And talk about John Lasseter. Byron Howard is the one that pitched the idea of an animal world to John Lasseter. And according to Howard, Lasseter responded to his pitch by picking up Howard similar to baby Simba in The Lion King and walking him through the office. I'm like, how small are you, first of all, that he can do that?
He's like baby Mr. Big. Oh, how the mighty have fallen.
Talking about the name Zootopia, I think the artwork that you pulled for this doesn't say Zootopia on it, correct?
No, it says Zootropolis, because apparently there's a company in the UK that owns the name Zootopia, but never enforced it until they tried to release this movie.
Yeah,
and Disney. Like, sorry, we own that. And they're like,
so they couldn't trademark it, and for the UK, the name Zootopia.
Yeah. So yes, I did choose the international poster, which is Zootropolis.
So, but what's funny is that you don't find that out until you read a bit further down, because the official word from Disney is that they were trying for a title that worked better for UK audiences.
Yeah,
and then
okay.
if you read into that a little bit more,
Because we were forced to.
yeah, we couldn't really get the trademark, so this works better for UK audiences.
Yeah.
Zootropolis.
Yeah.
And even further, they had to title it Zoomania in other countries because
I didn't read that.
because Zootropolis was taken. So there are 3 titles for this movie, depending on where you are in the world.
That is crazy.
Yeah, crazy town.
Well, they should have just called it the New Zoo Review.
Oh, that's a deep cut right there.
Freddy the Frog.
And Henrietta Hippo. As we said, released in 2016 on the cusp of spring, March 4th, 2016. It cost $150 million to make. It made $1.25 billion.
Woo!
Not million, $1 billion.
That's monstrous.
It is. So a huge hit out of the box. Disneyland Shanghai is opening a Zootopia-based land in their park in 2023. I don't know if this is going to have dark rides or what, or maybe if it's just a walkthrough, but I would love to see that.
You better have thousands of people in character.
Oh, yeah.
I better be just inundated with animals.
Nick and Judy being the most prevalent.
You need Idris Elba to actually come and dress as the water buffalo.
So this would mean that Bellwether joins the pantheon of Disney villains. A very unassuming Disney villain. It's not going to really be that menacing standing next to the evil queen from Snow White and Maleficent, but a Disney villain nonetheless.
What I was going to say, I think that's part of the charm, is the fact that she's so innocent looking and innocuous that watch out. You can't even say wolf in sheep's clothing, sheep in sheep's clothing.
Yeah.
Yes.
There's a second hidden Mickey. There's probably more than 2, but the other hidden Mickey that I read about was in the Rainforest District. When they first go there to interview the chauffeur.
Yeah.
There's an overhead shot because it's raining because it's the Rainforest District. There's an overhead shot and there's people walking with umbrellas. One of the umbrellas has a Mickey on the top of it.
Oh, I just assumed that the 3 umbrellas together would make the Mickey head.
Oh yeah, no,
that's obvious. Yeah. So when Judy's in the train heading into Zootopia and she's on her little Zoom or whatever it was when she was picking the music, there's a bunch of different bands in there that she passes before she hits a Gazelle, which is Shakira. And we have the Beagles. We had U2, Fur Fighters, Guns N' Rodents, Hyena Gomez, and K9 West.
Oh, you know what?
There's other ones, but
you're missing Fleetwood Yak.
Fleetwood Yak. Oh yeah, there it is. Mick Jaguar, Destiny's Cub, Black Sable, and Katy Perry.
So much eye candy in this.
Yes. Yeah. And that's the kind of stuff, like when you're animating this stuff, like you got to just be tickled pink when you come up with this stuff. You're spending 3 to 5 years on these movies. You got to do something entertaining after a while. I did also read that Nick Wilde's full name is Nicholas Tiberius Wilde, which is a direct Star Trek reference to James Tiberius.
Oh,
it would have been a different movie if they had William Shatner play him. But like I said, Jason Bateman, man, I thought he did a fantastic job. The character itself, very low key, very kind of like laid back. I really enjoyed this. I was pleasantly surprised, but I enjoyed this. I like I said, I feel kind of bad that I really threw this to the sidelines and was very dismissive of it. So I'm giving it 4 1/4.
I will match you on that. Yeah. A great movie, and that's out of 5 buckets, by the way. So that's very close to a perfect movie in our estimation.
Yeah, and I'm pretty sure that if our co-host was here, that she would have, because she chose this, so I'm assuming that she would have given that pretty high marks.
Yeah, and again, most of the cast here are just waiting for the sequel to happen. Jason Bateman, when asked about it recently, he thinks the sequel would entail the 2 of us, Nick and Judy, kicking ass out there, cleaning up the streets. 2 new cops. So bad guys, be warned.
Like a Lethal Weapon thing?
Yeah, just like a Lethal Weapon thing.
I like it.
So, what else did we do this week?
Well, I completely stuck with the spicy hot theme,
Okay.
and I watched Flaming Hot on Disney Plus, but it's also on Hulu.
What is this? Because I keep seeing it on the banner on Disney Plus.
Okay. So this is the true story, and I just did some major air quotes there, of this gentleman named Richard Montanez, who was a Frito-Lay janitor and is credited or not with creating or inventing the Flaming Hot Cheetos. So this is played pretty straight up that this is based on a true story. Ava Longoria directed this. This is her directorial debut. And I have to say, it, like, on the surface, you're like how can you sustain a movie about this? It is very well done, and it is very, very entertaining. Boy, if you want to talk about, immigrants being treated poorly, and there's a lot of Mexican slang getting thrown around early on. This guy is a hood. He's a gangster as a kid growing up, gets himself a job as a janitor in Frito-Lay. And you just kind of see this evolution. But the way it's told is very, it's almost like Luis in the Ant-Man movies, where he's telling you a story and you seeing these people act them out, but it's his voice coming out of their mouths, kind of a thing. It's very frenetic, but it is absolutely entertaining. And from what I'm understanding and reading now online, that none of it's true.
Oh, really?
That Frito-Lay have come out and basically claimed that this entire story is fabricated and that he had absolutely nothing to do with the creation of these Flaming Hot Cheetos, which is $1 billion market. Now, this guy is a real guy, and he just retired in 2019, and he ended up becoming like an exec for the Hispanic market, which opened up huge for Frito-Lay and PepsiCo, who owned them. But yeah, it's a lot of fun. I was very surprised at how entertaining this really was.
Wow. I mean, maybe we'll have to check it out here.
Yeah.
I also noticed on Disney Plus, suddenly there's a Stan Lee documentary. I haven't watched it yet, but looks interesting.
Yeah. Okay.
Now,
So
what I didn't watch it yet. No,
okay.
Not yet. But what I did this week was, as I mentioned before, I went to Whitehall, Pennsylvania, which is by Allentown. The reason for my trip was every once in a while, we take a pilgrimage to a Chuck E. Cheese restaurant. Now, I can hear
all the way to Pennsylvania.
I can hear the vinyl scratching and everything coming to a complete halt out here. But the reason being is my son is a huge animatronics buff fan, to the point where I think he's going to be some kind of an engineer.
Ooh, an Imagineer?
So we take a look to see where in the country and where close by us they still have these animatronics of the Chuck E. Cheese band.
So hold on, I'm just going to stop you for 1 second. So the Chuck E. Cheese that's up in Poughkeepsie is no longer there?
No, it's there, but they've taken out all their animatronics.
Really?
They're going through, most of the locations are going through remodels where they're taking out the stages that Chuck E. Cheese's were famous for, where they would have the bands. And what they're doing is replacing them with big screen TVs and dance floors. So the kids that go to these things.
I will just say that the handful of times I was at Chuck E. Cheese, those animatronics are nightmare inducing.
That's the reason why they have Five Nights at Freddy's, right? That's what that was based on.
What was the Nicolas Cage one?
Oh yeah, Willy's Wonderland.
Yep.
Yeah.
So this Chuck E. Cheese still exists with the animatronics in place.
Yes, it does. So they're becoming very few and far between.
Well, it's not, like you said, it sounds like they're phasing them out.
Yeah. So as a gift to him, for finishing the school year with good grades and all that, what we did was we saw which ones were closest to us that still had them. And they're actually starting the remodel next week at this location.
Oh, wow. So
they were only there. So we went there to check it out. And so just for an hour or two, we ordered that pizza, that Chuck E. Cheese pizza, set up shop right in front of the stage. And he went, and because they're getting rid of them, I guess they didn't care that much. So he got up on stage. He was looking at their workings and everything.
Oh,
else.
wow.
So, yeah.
Be a little behind the scenes tour.
Yep.
Huh.
So, and apparently there's an online Chuck E. Cheese community as well that talks about these remodels and stuff like that. So he went online and posted pictures after we got back.
Oh, that's very cool.
So that's the reason we went into that trip. We also went to go see Elemental at the local theater, and did a couple other things while we were there. Just a couple of days out, and we stayed one night.
Fun.
Yeah, it was a nice little road trip.
Did you ever take them to Stu Leonard's?
Yes,
because they also have
we've been there. Yeah.
I mean, I don't know. It's been quite a while since I've been there, so maybe they don't anymore. But they used to have the animatronics at the end of the aisles.
Yeah, they still do.
Okay.
Not to the extent that they did, but they're still there.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that's very fascinating. That's interesting. You got to feed that need, man. You got to feed that interest. I love it.
So what are we doing next week?
We are going to the DCEU.
Yes, we are.
Is it DCEU or DCU?
DCEU. One of the last times we will, apparently.
The Flash, yes.
And so this is a long time in the making, and it's been pushed back. Ezra Miller controversies, so on and so on, casting leaks. So we'll see if it's worthy, because I forget who the executive is. Somebody at Warner has said that this is the greatest superhero movie that they have ever seen. So whether that's true or not,
high praise right there.
That is high praise right there.
Didn't Stephen King even come out and claimed it?
Somehow he got to an early screening, and he has been praising it as well. So we'll see if it lives up to all that. And along with The Flash, we are watching another time travel film, Jet Li's The One. So this is a pick from Christina. So we'll see next week what her thought was on pairing these two things. Maybe it'll be obvious after we watch them both back to back. So we'll see.
I think it is going to be obvious.
Okay. Yes. All right then. Yes. So next week,
Flash, The One.
This was, I think, a missed opportunity for us to revisit the 1980 Flash Gordon. That would have been a pairing, wouldn't it?
I did lean into that a little bit with the headline for next week's Instagram.
All right.
Flash.
So because the last time we did cover Flash Gordon, but it was early days. So
it was a while ago.
I don't think we gave it the deep dive that we give to movies these days. So no, I think there's
a couple on our list I think we want to revisit.
Yeah, exactly. We could have even paired it with Flesh Gordon. Remember that?
You really think Christina's going to watch Flesh Gordon?
I've never seen it, so I don't.
I've never seen it either, but I do know the spaceship, and that's all.
Oh man,
Flesh Gordon.
It's going to be The Flash and The One next week. So please join us.
Yes, thank you very much for listening. And,
yes,
we'll be back.
Thanks, everybody.
Yep. Bye.
Bye.
Flesh Gordon.
Hey, everybody. If you like what you just heard, be sure to follow TMI Confessionals of the Nerd Kind on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or whatever you listen to your favorite podcasts on. Be sure to hit that subscribe button and then share it with your fellow movie nerd friends. It means the world to us and helps our listenership grow.
You can also find us on all of the socials, Instagram and Twitter at TMI_podcast 2018. We're on Facebook and YouTube as well. Just look for the Popcorn Bucket.
You can help support this show by visiting our TeePublic page for some TMI branded goodies such as hoodies, t-shirts, mugs, and stickers. TeePublic.com/TMI Confessionals, all one word.
A 5-star review would be incredibly nice as well. I'm just saying.
Thanks again for listening. We truly appreciate you. Be sure to come back next week. We'll save some popcorn for you.
This is not your first movie, but it may very well be your last.